Ladies and gentlemen, yet another stream from me. You can see the title right there. Hashtag release the Snyder Cut. These are all the reasons why Zack Snyder, his version of Justice League should really come out and not the version we got in the theaters. And so we'll talk about that in more detail. Let me get into scripture right now. Psalms 32, verse 8 says, I will instruct you and teach you in the way in which you should go. I will guide you with my eye. You know, a lot of times people feel that instruction or teaching doesn't involve choice. There are many different ways to teach or instruct people. And I will argue that the way how Martha and Jonathan Kent taught and instructed Clark Kent was the way in which God instructs and teaches us. We're never without choice. And for some reason, people always feel guiding or instruction or teaching people, one, it has to be punitive. And two, you have to do exactly what the person who's instructing you is saying. Instruction seems to mean, when I say I instruct you, it means you must do what I say. And that's not what instruction is. So we're going to go into it in some more detail. And I'm going to use Man of Steel. I'm going to use the importance and the focus on Jonathan Kent to illustrate what I'm saying. And I'll also kind of go across into Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice as I'm making this discussion. The other thing I want to say to you guys is you can always participate in the chat section. If you would like to join me in the Hangout, let me know. I'll send you the link and you can join me in the Hangout as well. But for now, I'm focusing on what we just read, a piece of scripture, which was Proverbs 32:8. I'm going to show you how Proverbs 32:8, how it is, how it's interesting. Now, another thing that I see people when they read the Bible, especially, they talk about how you must be humble and you must obey. And I notice they harp on those two things, being humble and obeying. But apparently, they don't understand what being humble is. And apparently they don't understand what obeying is. And I found that very interesting. All right, let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. So people with a certain degree of power, they will, in order to oppress other people, speak these two words. They talk about humility a lot, and they talk about the people they want to oppress obeying them. I'll give you a perfect example. Satan wants obedience. Satan wants obedience. What's the difference between obeying Satan and obeying God? What's the difference between humbling yourself under Satan and humbling yourself under God? We've had dictators who speak about humility to their people, stripping these people of their rights, their freedoms, their humanity. Steppenwolf wanted obedience. If the parademons didn't do what he said, what happened to them? They were destroyed. He wanted submission, humility. Otherwise, he would humiliate you, right? So, blind obedience and blind humility is what we call brainwashing. And I want you to understand the difference between brainwashing and true humility and true obedience. And I say this because the scripture talks about instruction. I want you to hear it again. It says, I will instruct you and teach you in the way in which you should go. I will guide you with my eye. All right. So How God goes about doing things and how man goes about doing things are diametrically opposed. But I'm going to show you from Man of Steel how God goes about doing things so that you can appreciate that you always have a choice with God. But with man, they try to strip you of your decision-making process and your choice. And they say you are submitting, therefore you are you're humble. Humility for man is not the same thing as humility for God. Obedience for man is not the same thing as obedience for God. I want you guys to get this. All right, I'm going to take God, I'm going to replace God with the word love. This is something everybody can understand. Mankind demands, it demands you be humble, but love never demands you be humble. You become a servant of love, you become humble to love because you choose to be. Love never demands your humility. You have to make a choice. And that's the beauty in Sucker Punch. Sucker Punch was talking about that. Man demands obedience. Love never demands obedience. You're going to choose to obey love because you love love, because you want love, because your desire is towards love. Love pulls on your desire for it. Whereas man tries to force you to do it. I want you to see the difference. Anytime somebody starts bringing up humility, that we must be humble, watch them carefully. Watch them closely. And watch to see if they are willing to be humble or if they are just there to manipulate the situation. And there are some who will feign humility. They will posture it, but they don't live it and they don't believe it. Watch their lives. If somebody has to tell you about humility and obedience over and over again, it means that there's something they want from you. But if they never say those words, but you desire to be as they are, and you find yourself cannot resist being humble because they are humble and they show it. You cannot resist being obedient and wanting to do whatever they say because they're so desirable. Then they have made their statement without having to say it. They have allowed you to make a choice. Okay. So let's get into what Zack Snyder did with this film, what David Goyer wrote, and what Christopher Nolan was able to offer as well. Because this is a fantastic story. And the interesting thing about this story is two middle Americans raised an extremely powerful individual who could have killed them at a moment's notice. So their approach could not be the approach that man tries to use, which is power and force to intimidate and beat you over the head with something and strip you of choice. No, they had to approach this individual differently. And I say this because as much as God is so powerful, that's how he approaches us all the time. He doesn't approach us with power and force because he doesn't want to break the thing that's fragile within us. And he wants us to choose. He wants us to make a choice. All right, let's get into it. So, Clark Kent becomes Superman. And what his destiny is, he's caught up with it, and he's now living in that destiny. And Martha Kent is there with him. She's proud of him as they go to visit Jonathan Kent's grave. It's a sort of family reunion kind of thing going on here. And as they're approaching his grave, as the story is wrapping up of the Man of Steel, Martha Kent is speaking to her son. And she's speaking words of validation to him, But not only that, words of a completion of a chapter of a prophecy. As the long gone deceased father, almost 10 years now, maybe more than 10 years, because Man of Steel happened in the year 2013, which means Jonathan Kent died in 1997. So 14 years later, they're visiting his grave. The man has long since gone, and they're visiting his grave as everything comes full circle. And there's a lot I want to say, but I'm going to take it one step at a time. And so they're coming full circle to Jonathan Kent's grave. And Martha Kent is speaking to her son. And yes, Clark Kent, the Superman, is her son. She sees him as one of her own. She's never bore him, as in literally given birth to him, but she has bore him for many, many years. 33 years she's borne this child. And she suffered when he suffered. Okay? This woman is selfless. This is not her biological son. In fact, she treats him as a son, but he is not even a human being. And he's incredibly powerful. If he were to, for one moment, get angry with Martha Kent, he could kill her like that. It's like raising a lion in your house, or raising a poisonous snake in your house, but treating that snake with integrity such that the animal does not desire to kill. This woman with this man could be killed in a moment by him. So I want you to understand the significance of this moment as she is embracing her child, and this is her child, and as she speaks to him as everything comes full circle. And she starts to repeat the essence of him. And this is why, I have so much things I want to say, but it's just too much for me to say. So I'm going to take my time and try and go and sound as coherent as possible. I have always told you guys, if someone dies that's close to you, ensure that you take from their lives the best parts of them and live those parts of them in your life. What Clark and Martha are going to do at this moment, Ma Kent, because he calls her Ma, is they're going to reinforce and speak about the good virtues of Jonathan Kent at this point in time and what they have taken with them and live with them throughout their lives. This is important because this is what life is all about, folks. It's about qualities. It's about virtues. So I'm taking my time to go through this video with you guys because it means something. It means something. This film means something. BVS means something. Wonder Woman means something. These are just films that mean something. And you can get a little something out of Suicide Squad. And you can get a couple things out of Justice League. Okay? But not quite what we should get. But nonetheless, these films mean something because of the values in them. So let's continue. So Martha Kent, when she comes to the grave with Clark, they're visiting the long since deceased father's grave. She says, he always believed you were meant for greater things, and that when the day came, your shoulders would be able to bear the weight. And you can see her tapping his shoulder. And if you notice, in Man of Steel, it's very interesting. I just find it very, very interesting. She always taps him on his shoulder. She doesn't tap him on his arm. I mean, he does put her hand in his arm and walks with her. But she generally taps him on the shoulder. And his shoulders, as you can see, are big and powerful and broad. and he's a hulk of a man, okay? And she always taps him on the shoulder. Have you ever noticed that? She continuously taps him on the shoulder. But there was a time I was noticing, again, these are nuances, but to me, they're very important nuances. Another very interesting thing about her, he leans on her very heavily for advice. Like she's one of the pillars on which he's built on, right? And she's like the remaining pillar because Jonathan's gone. But one of the things that I found very interesting about, you know, when I think of Martha Kent, and again, extraordinary woman, when you think about it. And all women, again, a testament to all women, they're very extraordinary people. I mean, you know, my mom is just an extraordinary person. My sister-in-laws, both of them are extraordinary people. My cousins, you know, I think of all of them, all these women. If you just, I mean, gosh, man, how do they do it? They take care of kids. They work. They multitask with their friends, and they are able to go shop and do all these other things. And they are involved in 100 million other things, whether it's church or home or family or research or business. They're involved and they read like crazy. I mean, you think about women, man. I don't care what woman. I don't care if she's a woman from where. All right. They're fantastic people. They can organize things pretty well, better than men. They have a lot of vision and foresight to see things that we as men don't see. They just have that skill and ability. And no matter how reflective you are as a man, women tend to be able to see beyond all those things. And another thing I think they're very perceptive with is emotions. I mean, I'm a person who's very sensitive myself. I feel emotions. I feel a lot of things. I don't always express them properly, but I feel a lot of stuff. I'm a very sensitive person. But at the same time, I got to say, in terms of intuition and sensitivity, I think women beat me back by miles. Like, they are cognizant of a lot of things. And, their world is different to our world. You know, they can bear pain. It's crazy how much pain they can bear as well. And to me, that's, and yes, they cry a lot and all of those things. And they have they share their emotions much more easily, and they're very communicative. So women thrive off of community. They thrive off of other women and other people they can talk with, you know, whereas a man, we're more lone wolf. We can actually abide by ourselves. It's not healthy, but we can kind of more exist by ourselves a lot more than women can. Or I wouldn't say no, than women can, because women can do it too. It's just that I'm saying that their lives really spark up when they have a community around them. And, you know, as a man, it's nice to have community around you as well. It helps tons. There's a lot of support, you know. But I find that women, they are able to multitask so many different things. I can only do one thing at a time. And like, women can do 10, 12 things at a time. My mom would be on the phone. She's on 2 phones. Like, my mom will have 2 phones in her hand. She'll have a phone here. She'll have a phone here. She'd be watching television. I don't know how she could do that. And she's reading, and she's not just reading. She's doing some sort of project. She's writing out something. And like, good God, you know. I remember also my ex-girlfriend. She was like that too, but she was different because she had a special ability. She was dyslexic, right? And dyslexia, when you're a highly functional dyslexic, you don't study the same way like normal people. Okay, I know I'm going into a whole bunch of stuff, but I have so many experiences in my life that is, you know. And the cool thing about her is she would be reading, I kid you not, 7 books at once. She reads 7 books at once. Okay, at once. Yes, that's right. She has the capability of doing some really incredible things. And then the way how she processes information, she's very repetitive, you know, to the point of which she's sometimes incoherent how repetitive she is. And like, I remember sitting down studying with her, and it was just a totally different experience to anything I'd ever experienced. Because for me, I studied by, you know, I'd highlight certain things and I'd read one passage and I'd take my time and digest things, and I stay focused on one thing, right? She can be focused on like 7, 8, 9 things at once. Her capacity is just, it blows my mind. And then the way how she talks while she's processing is weird. Like, she does not use sentences at all. So it's like just ideas and points going out of her head. And then she would mathematically map out things. She start to, and she would try to be explaining things to me, and I'm like clueless. I'm like lost, right? But when she's finished, Jesus Christ, man. Sorry for calling your name in vain, Lord. She just like, she was incredible. Like you revolutionary stuff. I'm talking revolutionary stuff, like blows your mind kind of stuff, right? And you'd be like sitting down there and you just, like, I'd be like, because you know how I'm talking to you guys right now, slightly incoherent right now, okay? But like, dude, I'm a creative person, okay? Ideas pop in my head all the time, all right? Music pops in my head all the time, you know? But God damn it, man. She is like on the next level. Like her mind's just incredible, you know? And that used to blow me away. Like, you know, how she could do all these different things at once and be reading all these different things. And she started to kind of show me how you go about doing that, because I was doing research. So you had to read like 200 papers, 300 papers. Sometimes you go through the abstract. Sometimes you have to go through the whole paper. And she could speed read. Like she would just, like she would devour our entire research paper. You know, she'd go through like 20 something pages of that thing in minutes. Like she, I mean, it's just, dude, she was crazy, man. You know, and it's, you know, that's another thing people don't understand. Dyslexia is, there are different kinds of dyslexia, okay? But once you understand how your brain works and how you process information, it is freaking crazy what these people can do. You know, it's kind of like people who have, because I'm slightly autistic myself, autism. Once you understand how you function, how your mind works in autism, shit, it's crazy. But you have some weak spots. Like she has weak spots. Like, she's dyslexic. So I'm breaking this down to you guys because this is kind of interesting for me to talk about. I know I should be talking about Man of Steel, but I digress. It's so fascinating, dyslexia, because there are different kinds of it, by the way. But the thing about her is, because she has to see the full picture, she can be indecisive about things if she hasn't finished processing things. So it's crazy. Like, you know, man, I wish I could talk to you guys more about what people call special abilities and just how almost like a freaking X-Man she is. You know, like a precog sometimes. She would like so see a pattern. She can see patterns very, 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 very well. She could so see, and that's the thing with dyslexic people. They can see beyond. Like, so for instance, whereas you may read a word from left to right, a dyslexic person can see the word top to bottom, left to right, right to left, and in and out. They can see those dimensions to a given word. And this is why dyslexic individuals sometimes confuse something, because they can see it from multiple different ways. And what with my ex, she was able to not just do that, but she also had the capacity to, she didn't have to read top to bottom. She could read bottom to top. You know, she could read forwards, backwards, you know, whichever way. She loved mathematics. She was more mathematical than anything else. But she was, I mean, you would never know she was dyslexic, because the way how she spoke and the way how she read, she's fluent when she reads. And then she was fluent in different languages, because all of these things are mappings, they're patterns. Once she picks up the pattern on something, it's over, you know? And so anything that has repetition in it, she would pick it up really fast. And so because of that, she's just this phenomenal mind where it doesn't really matter what subject you're studying. She can pick up almost anything if she can just understand and map the pattern to it. It's crazy. I mean, and yet she has these deficiencies where if she hasn't gotten the pattern, if she hasn't figured out the formula, she's lost. And that's the thing with her. So it's like, and that's basically what dyslexia is, I would say. It's something where the mind captures and it's weird how she captures the information. Like if you were to sit down with her, it's just weird. It's like so strange. It's like counterintuitive, you know. And she's not really using sentences, and her eyes are big. Her eyes just pop open in her head, and she's sparking like a spark plug, and she's talking to me, and I don't know what she's saying because it doesn't make any sense to me. You know, we tried to study together, and I was like lost half of the time because she's just way ahead of me every single time, and I'm just stuff that I just don't even understand. I used to be jealous of her at one time, and then I was like, is she mad? At first, I thought she was crazy, right? And I was thinking, are you okay? And then, later on, I realized that, God damn, this is good. It's really crazy how our brain works, Anyways, yeah, I just had to talk about that because to me, that's the fascinating part about, and being, yeah. So anyway, I went off. The point I was trying to make, which I just completely went off tangent with, is that Superman's this special individual, okay? And as with all things, he, it's wonderful what he could do, and that's the whole part of it. But just imagine if that went south, what would happen? You mean, as a baby, just imagine if he lost it, like how he lost it in the school with his X-ray vision, and just chopped off Martha Kent's arm or neck or eye or something. You know what I mean? You got to understand it. They were walking a fine line with this kid. Okay. So, they did a phenomenal job of raising him, obviously, but there's a lot of danger in that. There was a lot of danger. It's like raising, like I said, a lion or something. So they couldn't raise him as a child with other children unless they highly supervising him. Because if this kid lost it for some reason or got a tantrum or whatever happened to him, this could cost lives and fast. Okay. You remember, he could run very fast. He was very, very strong. All right. I don't know how many things got destroyed in that house because I was looking at how when General Zod picked up the truck, or when they picked up Martha Kent and threw her and she hit the ground, how it wasn't extremely surprising to her. I would not be surprised that Clark at some point, either threw a tantrum or something something happened and he just used his strength, his sheer strength. Just imagine that. I mean, people always look at and fantasize on superheroes. Oh, in Superman 1978, you see them, and Superman picked up the car as a baby, and it's like, oh, wow, so cute. The baby just picked up a car. No, that's not cute. That's scary. Think about it now. In real life, if a baby's picking up a freaking car, how are you going to discipline him when you need to discipline him? You can't get on the baby's bad side now. You're dead. You know what I'm saying? So it was like, when I saw that, I was like, damn. So when I saw him use the X-ray vision, not the X-ray vision, sorry, the heat vision, and burned the doorknob, I was so thankful that he burned the door up, because he was like, leave me alone. He wanted to be alone. He was like, leave me alone. Shit, what happened if he just used that X-ray vision and just burned through the door and burned the teacher, man? God damn. You see what I'm saying? So that's why Martha's always on call. She was always on call for her son. And it reminds me, interestingly, of my aunt, whose name is also Martha. She was always on call for her son, who had sickle cell anemia. Any crisis, she would just be there. She's always, you remember when Clark was saying to Martha in Batman v Superman, I know, guys, I'm all over the place, but bear with me here. And he was saying to Martha in Batman v Superman, he was saying to her, I just wish it was a lot more simple. And she said to Clark in a very almost cynical voice, she says, oh, Clark, my baby boy, it never was simple. She knows what she's talking about. And, even when he called her in the middle of the night, right? He called in the middle of the night after watching the news. And he says, Ma, and she says, Clark, you see, she has the anxiety immediately. Clark, what's wrong? That's the first thing she says. And because she's always on call for him. You understand? She's always on the edge. Her son made it to becoming a great, adult and a symbol for the world, but she's always on edge with this kid. Okay? And she calls him my baby boy, which is very interesting. I love that. I'm saying all of this so that now we can put this whole thing in context, that these people did a remarkable job with Superman. And what I love about what David Goyer and Chris Terrio and Christopher Nolan and Zack Snyder put together was something that you could literally see. This is what would be necessary in parenting. And that goes back to my scripture. So I'm gonna come around to what I'm saying to you guys, because I'm gonna come around to it. It's just taking me a little while to get there. Bear with me, please. So Psalms 32 says, I will instruct thee and teach thee in the way in which you go. But how? I will guide you with my eye. All right. So if you really want to be an effective parent or leader, set the example. Let me say it again. Let me say it again. Actions speak louder than words, folks. Set the proper example for your children. If you are, a leader of a church organization or a church or something, set the example. Don't talk. Don't yappy dappy. That's important too. But show it. That's the best way you can actually show people the truth. Show it. All right? As for the church people, if you're not a church person, it's still the same. People know you're genuine by what you do. It's interesting because that's what Martha said also in BVS. Said they see who you are and they know what you do. Right? It's your actions that tell us your intent and your motives. So it's how you live your life. I could talk, forever in these videos. But it's always about how you do how you live your life that's important. That's what people read. They can't read even if you say the best things, but you live differently to that, they'll think you're a phony. Listen, that's what these films are all about. Getting you to get up, have a voice. And your voice is mostly in your actions. Your words too, but in your actions. This is not just a comic book movie, folks. None of these are. There's a reason they wanted it to be realistic. There's a reason they wanted you to relate to these films. Okay, so let me get back to what I was saying. So, Martha Kent says about Jonathan Kent, he always believes you were meant for greater things, and that when the day came, your shoulders would be able to bear the weight. So Clark says, yeah, I just wish he could have been here to see it finally happen. And she says to him, he saw it, Clark. Believe me. And that is so true. Here's a really funny moment I thought in the movie, if you guys were paying attention to it. So Clark is here. He's playing with the dog. He puts on one of those red sheets, curtains, whatever. He drapes it on his back and he's playing with it, and he's chasing the, like a dog chases his tail. He's kind of spinning around and around trying to get the cape because he's trying to adjust the cape. And he turns for a minute and sees both his parents staring at him. And this is the moment right there. It's pretty funny. And his both parents are looking at him and his potential at that very moment. These are two people who understood that there were risks to raising this individual who had abilities that could easily, if he goes south, easily destroy them and wreak havoc on the world. But because of their hope and optimism, they were able to see the good in him and cultivate that. That was the important part of this movie. These people, and it's interesting because, this is the thing I've been saying all along. The middle American people, no matter, you guys, sometimes people talk about racism and all these things, but I put all of that aside for a minute. Middle American people and small town country folk are the best people in the world I've ever met. I don't care what place in the world you ever go to, because these people always try to teach values. Be a good neighbor, be kind, be hospitable, be courteous. Country folk, I don't care if they're white. Okay? And trust me, if they are good country folk, that so-called racism that people talk about with them, they'll see past it. I believe in it if they are racist. Because country folk are the best people in the world. They're the best people in the world. They are. I'm telling you. They're not like city folk. Country folk are the best people in the world because they go back to the values and the virtues. And if you really appeal to their heart and conscience, country folk will tell you you're right. They're the first people to tell you they're wrong and you're right. Middle America, man, or any other nation in the world, where you go into the countryside, they are all good folk. They are all good folk. I don't care if you're talking about the Aborigines in Australia or the Tainos in Mexico. Once you're going up into the countryside, them country folk is good people. They may be a bit superstitious. Some of them got their voodoo thing going on. Sorry about that. No disrespect to Haiti and voodoo. But what I'm saying is that, you know, they got their little semi-demis going on and stuff. And their little supernatural stuff they might be messing around with. But at the end of the day, they genuinely are all sincere about what they believe. That's the thing about country folk I love. And Clark grew up in the heart of Kansas with two country folk. Now, this could have easily gone south if he had landed somewhere in the city. And then the government took him as an experiment. He would have become an X-Men. He might have been Magneto. I want you guys to understand what I'm saying. It was because of these country folk who expected the government to come down and get him, but they didn't get him, so they raised him. It's these country folk. They put the values into this guy, the appreciation for life, responsibility in choosing. But how did they do that? How did they put these values in this kid? There's only one way you can put those values in this kid. Because you have to let him choose. You got to show it. And Jonathan and Martha showed Clark how to treat people with respect, how to love people, how to be a good neighbor. They showed him. They had to shelter him a bit because the potential for this thing to go south was pretty fat. They knew what they were dealing with. But they started to show him. That's how you guide people. That's how you guide people. You show them the way by how you live. And then they desire certain attributes of you. They'll come to you for guidance. And you can mentor them. And Jonathan Kent was Kal-El's or Clark Kent's mentor. Clark Kent used to listen to him like if he was listening to God. Because Jonathan lived what he taught. Country folk. Your word is your bond. Country folk. You got to love country folk. So let's get on. So from very young, his father Jonathan saw the potential in him for good. And that's the hope in him. A hope which Jarrell counted on for his peoples to continue and for the earth to benefit from. You remember Jarrell said, Jarrell is the starter of this whole thing, of course. Jarrell said, I've held that hope in my hands. There's hope for our race still. So Superman was that hope that Jarrell counted on to bring two peoples together and allow for one people's race to continue onwards and for the other race to go down a path that's better than what that dying race went down. And so, like Martha Kent said, the hope that he was meant for greater things, and when the day come, he would be able to bear the world on his shoulders. Jonathan Kent saw that from since he was a little kid, playing out there with the dog in the yard. And it's interesting because that same prophetic kind of sight is what the prophets saw when God revealed it about Jesus. And when that day came, he was able to bear the world on his shoulders too. But I thought, it would be nice to show you guys this in a video. And so I wanted to show you that it's that hope that Jonathan had for Clark to be something better. And yet he never once denied Clark that choice. He guided him with the eye, his eye. Because see, when the Lord says in Proverbs chapter 8, and I keep on going back to Proverbs chapter 8 all the time, he said, I will instruct you and teach you in the way in which you shall go. I will guide you with my eye. Instruction and teaching doesn't mean you're debarred of choice. Every step of the way you have to choose. And there are many choices to make. But a guide or a mentor is able to help you sort out which choice is the best one for you. My dad was a psychologist. That man would always tell me one day I'll be a great guy. I'm a great man now, but the world will see I'm a great man. He would always say these things. He would say you're destined for greatness. So I can identify with Jonathan Kent in this story here very easily. Because my father, who had influenced so many lives, was very much like Jonathan, very positive. And he always gave his sons, me and my two brothers, the ability to choose. My mother was a little bit different. She would say, you don't have a choice in this. You're going to church. You're doing this. My father would always want you to understand why you needed to do what you're doing. And then you could choose whether you want to do it or not, because you're in charge of your life. And now we've learned later on that it's better for kids at an early age to learn how to choose and accept responsibility for their actions than trying to just beat down, this is the way to do it. This is the way to do it. See, it's not about blind obedience. See, it's not about humility. It's about exercising your right to choose to do something, which could be done 100 million different ways. And being able to make the right choice. And a parent is supposed to guide their children, make them think about it. What's the consequences of the actions if you were to do this? So now we see that Jonathan Kent here, he's vocalizing what Martha Kent had said. And he says, you know, remember he said he thought Clark was going to be a guy for greatness. And he says, you're not just anyone, Clark. And I have to believe that you were sent here for a reason. All these changes you are going through, one day, you're going to think of them as a blessing. And when that day comes, you're going to have to make a choice of whether to stand proud before the human race or not. He's planting that seed. He's demonstrating the good attributes to his son. And now he's planting that seed in his son. He knew all along, since a little boy, that this boy was going to be something great. In fact, he vocalizes that yet again here when Clark was bullied. He said, you just have to decide what kind of man you want to grow up to be, Clark, because whoever that man is, good character or bad, is going to change the world. Again, Jonathan gave Clark the choice in which he would progress, but he's guiding him at the same time. Because just before he said that, he said, I wanted to see you kick that boy's tail, but then what? Make you feel any better? And so he's constantly asking Clark questions to sort of sculpt his mind into thinking, being reflective about every action he takes. Because when he told Clark that you're not from this world, Clark, you're the answer, son, to why we are not alone in the universe. He said, I don't want to be. He said, I understand. It's a big burden for anyone to bear, but you're not just anyone, Clark. And he's preparing his mind for the responsibility of being who he is. You may not know who you are as yet, but we've seen your potential. Jonathan saw the potential in Clark, and he's trying to get him to be more responsible with the gifts he's gotten. And he knows that his son, Clark, has got to know who he is. But in the process of getting to know who he is, like all the teenage children, all the children going to school now, they are getting to know who they are. And I could tell you one thing about this generation, as generations before, they have incredible potential. And some of that potential and that ability, it gets destroyed by society because society says, no, you cannot do this and you cannot do that. And you must cow down to what we say you must be. And so they have beautiful ideas and beautiful constructs which have never been proven before. They're going places that we have never dreamed of going. Are we going to keep them back and restrict them to what we know? Or are we going to allow them to choose, to explore as far as their imagination can go? But in all things, teach them about the responsibility of their choices, how to use their gifts responsibly. But do whatever you feel you need to do in life. Just remember there's a responsibility behind it. That is what we need to do for the next generation. That's why I said these films are films for children. These are the kids' films, where parents sit down with their children and speak to them about what they saw in the movie. So I hear people saying Man of Steel is the best DCEU film out there, and I laugh. I laugh because this was the film that they said was bad. Now they're trying to give a narrative that, the DCU has progressively gotten worse, which is not true either. BVS, I think, bar none, is the best DCEU film out there. Then comes Man of Steel, then Wonder Woman. But I must say to you guys that at the end of the day, I don't care if it's the best film or not. I really don't. What is important to me is that it has an impact on you, on each and every individual here, so that we don't, when we are in positions of power, we don't use it to oppress other people. I am speaking to our leaders. Proverbs chapter 8 speaks to our leaders. As a leader, you're supposed to set the example first of how the tone for those who are working under you should be. Which means you're not supposed to oppress people or wield your power in unseemly manners where you're trying to intimidate people into doing what you want them to do. That is not the way to lead. Let me say it again. If you are trying to oppress people into following the ways in which you think they should go, that is not the way to lead. And guess what, folks? All of us as human beings have done this. We're guilty of it. That's not God's way. He wants you to see. He wants you to use your observation and see how he moves, how he cares for other people, how he tries to give people freedom to be the best they can be. He wants you to live. And if you like the way how he does things, then you will want to follow in his footsteps. AKA, a guy asked me, why am I called Christ I Am Disciple? And there's multiple meanings, but one of them is Christ, the great I am. Basically, Christ, the God. The other word for it is Jesus. The Messiah means he who saves. Jesus, which means God saves. So Christ, I am, is the same thing as Christ, the God. Okay. I follow him. I follow him. I follow Christ not because I want to be obedient or I want to be humble. I follow him because I love the way he moves. I love the example he set. I want that. I want it to be who I am. I want it to be a part of my life. That's why I'm a disciple. So this is what it is about. When he says, I lead you with my eye, He means, I want you to see how I do things, how different it is to how you do things. So your eyes will be open. So you want to do it like how I do it. Right now, the reason why people think there isn't a God is because he moves so quietly. That's humility. You can't teach people humility if you yourself aren't humble. You can't teach people obedience if you don't obey. God obeys us a lot. He's our servant. He serves us every day. When we make a choice, he makes it happen by keeping the world in place. He's the most obedient person you'll ever meet. When we pray and make a request to him, he's faithful. He does it. He said, whatever you ask, I'll do. That's called obedience. He's the biggest servant. He don't ever tell you to do something he wouldn't do. Do you get it? Do you understand? That's why I love God. That's why I love him. And that's the same thing with Jonathan and Martha Kent to Clark. That's why Clark, that's why Superman is who he is. All right, guys, I'm going to check in the chat section to see what you guys are saying. As usual, I merge scripture with whatever I'm saying so that you guys can have a better life. This video was pretty long. Let me get out of this video so I can see what you guys are saying. All right. Hold on a sec. So we got a chat section here. Hold up. Stop that there. All right. Okay. So let me see what you guys are saying in the chat section. Hey, Go Films. All right, Go Films. What's up, man? What's up? What's up? And Go Films just popped up in there. Yeah, man. Okay, we don't have much of a discussion up in here, and that's okay. Guys, I gotta go. It's 2:03. The phone just rang. That means I gotta go answer it. I gotta see who's there on the phone. So, guys, I gotta go. Shout out to you, Go Films. Have a blessed day, man. Peace to you. I gotta go. Peace. Deuces.